Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. This webinar today is for new CalMedForce awardees for fiscal year 2020-2021. The contract effective date for this grant is going to be July 1st, 2021, and will last either 3 or 4 years, depending on the length of your residency program. Now, last week you should have received your awardee agreement and other documents through DocuSign from us, and we'll be speaking on those documents in our presentation today. My name is Robin Simpson, and I'm the CalMedForce Program Director at Physicians for a Healthy California. In our webinar today, my colleagues and I are hoping to address all your questions about being either a new or returning CalMedForce awardee. Please feel free to submit any questions that you have through the chat function. Our team will be monitoring the questions. We might be able to reply through the chat. However, we're going to save questions till the end, and we'll definitely have the opportunity to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. All participants will be placed on mute during our short presentation. Please note we are recording today's webinar, and our recording will be placed on the PHC website by the end of this week. First, thank you so much for applying for CalMedForce funds, and congratulations on being one of our recipients for this year. We truly appreciate what our awardees are doing to expand graduate medical education and train doctors to serve medically underserved areas and populations. This is our agenda for our webinar this morning. We'll talk a little bit about the governance structure of CalMedForce, award criteria. We'll go over the timeline for this contract. We'll talk about reporting requirements that you can expect, awardee expectations, and then next steps. The mission of CalMedForce is right up here on the screen. So CalMedForce is committed to growing a diverse physician workforce by supporting, incentivizing, and expanding graduate medical education in California. Our goal is to grow and strengthen the physician pipeline to meet the demands of California's growing patient population with a focus on medically underserved areas and populations. The program is funded by Proposition 56, passed by voters in 2016, which allocates $40 million annually to sustain, retain, and expand California residency positions in primary care and emergency medicine. It's sponsored by California Medical Association, California Hospital Association, and the Service Employees International Union. University of California is the designated recipient of the funding and contracted with PHC to administer the GME grant program, CalMedForce. This slide shows the section of Proposition 56 that governs our program. At the top, Part C states that $40 million will be provided to UC with the goal of increasing the number of primary care and emergency medicine physicians. The funds are to be used to sustain, retain, and expand graduate medical education programs. Part 1 defines primary care to include internal medicine, family medicine, obstetrics, gynecology, and pediatrics. Part 2 says that funding is to be prioritized for direct medical education costs for programs serving medically underserved areas and populations. Part 3 states that all accredited allopathic and osteopathic residency programs in California are eligible to apply. Part 4 states that we are to conduct annual reviews of statewide physician shortages and that funds may be used to address such shortages in other specialties. In order to be eligible to apply for CalMedForce, applicants and awardees must meet and maintain the following criteria throughout the term of the award. Programs must be located in California, be either allopathic or osteopathic, be one of the 5 eligible disciplines, which includes family medicine, internal medicine, obstetrics, gynecology, pediatrics, or emergency medicine, maintain ACGME accreditation, and serve medically underserved populations and areas. All right, now over to my colleague, Fernando Gomez.
Hi, everyone. Here I want to show you the awardee performance timeline for the awardees in the 2020-21 fiscal year cycle. The awardee performance cycle begins on July 1st, 2021, so in just a few months. And in this performance period, you'll be given 2 reports, a semi-annual and annual review at these respective dates. And on your final year, you'll be given a final report instead of an annual report. So later this year in December, you'll be receiving the first semi-annual review, and that semi-annual review will be due January 31st. And in 2022, in June, you'll be receiving the annual review, which will then be due July 31st. For year 2, again, the awardee performance begins July 1st, followed by the semi-annual review in December, which will be due January 31st. And then in that year, the annual review will be sent out in June, and then be due July 31st of 2023. And if you're a 3-year program, the awardee performance again begins July 1st, followed by the semi-annual review being sent out in December, which will be due January 31st. And instead of an annual review, you'll be receiving a final report June 30th, which will be due September 30th. And for a 4-year program, instead of the final report, you'll still receive an annual report. And for if you're a 4-year program, again, the awardee performance begins July 1st, followed by the semi-annual review in December, which will be due January 31st. And in June 30th, you will receive your final report, which will be due September 30th. What we're looking at now is the payment schedule for the 2020-21 awardees. In the left, you can see the payment year and payments per year. And on the right, you can see the performance period. And in the middle is the allotment details. So after the contract execution, you'll be receiving 25% of the first payment. After that, you'll be receiving 25% after certification of the annual review, which basically is after you submit the semi-annual review and after review by staff and approval, you'll be receiving 25%, as well as 50% after certification of the annual review. And for the next following years, instead of 25%, it will be 50% after certification of the semi-annual review, as well as 50% after certification of the annual review. And next, I'll be giving a brief overview of the semi-annual review. Just a reminder, the reporting requirements are described in the awardee contracts. And if you haven't seen or gone over the contracts yet, or want to go back and take a look, it will be on section E under program reports and site visits, and provides more details of what to expect. And just to recap, the semi-annual reviews are sent to awardees every December and are due no later than January 31st of every year. And the semi-annual review will consist of program assessments in the form of questionnaires, usually sent through Microsoft Forms, as well as some supporting documents, for example, a financial report table and a resident change table. And before we move on, I do want to note that what you're going to see are just previous templates of both the semi-annual and annual review used in past cycles, and these templates are subject to change. And when we send out the reports, we will also send out a webinar to go over on how to fill out and submit the semi-annual, annual review, as well as these supporting documents. So first, with the semi-annual review, we'll be asking some basic questions, for example, the program and contact information. And then with that, the semi-annual review and financial report certification, signatures and date of submission. And for the program assessment, first question, we'll be asking if programs experiencing resident position changes, such as resident transfers, extended medical leaves, or other relevant residency position changes. And if you select yes on this question, you'll be required to fill out a resident change table, which we'll see a template in a bit. Next question will be asking, select any changes or updates to the residency program or sponsoring institution, followed by if there are any changes to the residency program or sponsoring institution, please add additional details. Next section will be asking questions regarding program development and training. For example, how has your program prioritized medically underserved areas and populations? Followed by, please select the following that describe faculty development and training related to medically underserved areas and populations. These may include activities that address socioeconomic, cultural, and/or linguistic barriers to health. And please describe resident development and training related to medically underserved areas and populations in the box to the right. These may include activities that address socioeconomic, cultural, and/or linguistic barriers to health. Next section will be asking about program successes and challenges. For example, what successes did the residency program experience during this reporting period? Followed by what challenges did the residency program experience during this reporting period? And we will also be asking a question relating to COVID-19. For example, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected your residency program this reporting period? And the final section will be about program accreditation, financial reports, and any other documents. You will be required to submit your ACGME residency program letter of accreditation, your most up-to-date one, followed by a financial report table and a resident table, which we'll see templates on the next few slides. So this here is an example of the resident change table. If you recall back to the first question from the program assessment, if you selected yes to that question, if there were any changes to the program or residents of the program, you'll be asked to describe those changes here. So you will list the resident name and PI number, gender, race, and ethnic category, as well as the description of the change. However, I do want to note for the first semi-annual review, all awardees will need to submit a list of residents, which provides information of the residents beginning of fall 2021. And after that, all subsequent reports will only require the program or the awardees to report resident changes that occurred within that specific cohort. And this right here is a template of the financial report table. On the right, where it says table 1, you will list the category. For example, it could be faculty development, medical equipment, non-medical benefits, and etc., as well as the description and the amount. And I do want to point out that the program must account for at least 75% of the amount. And if you have any unused funds in table 3 on the bottom left, you would be asked to give a brief description of how you plan on using those unused funds within the program year. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it to my colleague, Victoria.
Thank you, Fernando. So I'll be going over the other monitoring report required by this grant, which is the annual review. So annual reviews are sent to awardees in mid-June and are due on July 31st, excluding the final year in which there is a final report. The annual review consists of a program assessment that requires a bit more detail than the semi-annual review, a financial report, and a few supporting documents, which I will go into later. So the main sections of the annual review are as follows. The first is a program assessment and financial report certification, where you will certify the information provided is accurate. The second section is the financial report, which was previously referred to as the program invoice, where you will report expenses. The third section is the program assessment, which contains questions about program information and changes, program development and training, program outcomes, and program successes and challenges. And then the final section is other documents requested, which include the most recent ACGME letter of accreditation for the program, any ACGME site visits during the reporting period, and a resident change table, which identifies any relevant resident changes. The following are questions that may be asked on the annual review. These questions are under the section Program Information. The first question asks about resident changes, and again, the answer selected will determine whether you fill out a resident change table. The second question asks whether the positions the program was awarded for were filled. Next, we asked whether there are any changes or updates to the residency program or sponsoring institution, and provide some options as well as an opportunity to add additional detail. The next question relates to program development and training and asks how the program prioritizes medically underserved areas and populations. These next questions we ask on both the semi-annual and annual review, and that's just about any faculty or resident development and training related to medically underserved areas and populations. So this paramix question is a question we only ask on the annual review, and we ask programs to provide the paramix percentage for Medi-Cal, dual eligible, indigent, uninsured, and other payers at the start of the academic year. If there were no changes, you would just select that and move on. But if there were changes from the start of the academic year to the current paramix, we ask you to provide that information as well. Here we ask about daily patient encounters, as well as average total patient encounters provided by the number of residency positions funded by the CalMedForce grant. So these questions pertain to program successes and challenges. The first is what successes the residency program experienced during the reporting period. We also ask how your program supports the goal of CalMedForce and growing the physician pipeline. And here we ask about any challenges the residency program experienced during the reporting period. And lastly, we have ended the last few reports by asking how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected your residency program, and also allowing the opportunity to add any additional information that you believe CalMedForce should know about. And then here's an example of the resident change table, which Fernando went over, and is required if you selected yes on that first question in the program assessment, and you will be asked to provide any relevant changes such as transfers or medical leave. And for the duration of this award cycle, you will only report resident changes that occurred to the resident cohort that began this fall in 2021 and the resident cohort that you provided on the list of resident table. And then here's an example of the financial report, which Fernando went into. Programs must account for a minimum of 75% of total available funds, and any unused funds will carry over into the next reporting period. And lastly, the final report, which is due within 90 days of the end of the grant, either year 3 or year 4, depending on the length of your program. Final reports will include similar data and questions asked in the semi-annual and annual reviews, but the information and feedback requested may be more robust and is intended to inform us on the impact of CalMedForce funding. And now I will pass it back over to Robin.
Thank you, Victoria. And just to recap, what Fernando and Victoria provided was a quick overview of the reporting requirements, and just wanted to repeat that once again, when we send those templates out to awardees, we will typically offer either a live webinar or a recording to cover all instructions on how to fill out those reports. So that's not the first time, or not the only time, that you'll see those templates. We will go into depth when we send them out. All right, moving on to awardee expectations. So during the term of the grant agreement, awardees are expected to comply with all contractual obligations, including those reporting requirements and deadlines that you just heard about. Awardees must also continue to maintain ACGME accreditation and must alert PHC staff of any change in accreditation status. Awardees must reply to any inquiries from PHC within 10 days of requests. So for example, if you are turned in a report and an item is missing and we reach out to request the additional information. Awardees must notify PHC of any program changes. So this might include changes to your program director or your primary contact person, or any other change in organizational structure, for example. Lastly, awardees, of course, are expected to complete all the reporting requirements. And as my colleagues mentioned, upon approval of each report, that's when you will receive your next payment. So reports must be received and approved in order for awardees to receive the next payment. If awardees do need any assistance completing any reports, if you have any questions that come up when you are completing the reporting requirements, please do not hesitate to contact us. We'd rather make sure that you're getting all the help you need during the process of doing the report rather than afterwards. We don't want to delay your payment. Additionally, CalMedForce may request a site visit at any time throughout the award term. So site visits are currently conducted through 1.5-hour virtual meetings, so typically over Zoom. We'll contact you at least 45 days in advance to schedule a site visit meeting. Awardees must use grant funds for direct costs related to GME. We do have an allowable cost document that we'd like you to review. It was sent out with your awardee agreement and other documents, so do make sure that you refer to that allowable cost document. It contains information on allowable costs as well as unallowable costs. And once again, if you have any questions about what's allowable or not allowable, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Lastly, we highly encourage you to spend the award amount within your award term, as we do require that any unused funds be returned to PHC at the end of the agreement term. All right, next step. So last Wednesday, May 12th, we sent out the new awardee documents through DocuSign, as I mentioned. The documents were sent to the primary contact person that was listed on the CalMedForce application. So once again, applications were filled out back in August. So if you had any changes and maybe we need to send the awardee documents to someone else, please don't hesitate to let us know. We can absolutely change the recipient on those documents. Just send us an email and we can correct that for you. So the documents included the awardee agreement, the ACH authorization form, the contact information update form, and the W-9. So quickly going over those. On the awardee agreement, you'll see here's a screenshot of what the first page of the awardee agreement looks like. So do make sure you're reading over. It has your residency program name on it. All information is correct and accurate. And that the contract, as well as all the other documents, need to be signed, preferably through DocuSign, and returned to CalMedForce by June 30th, 2021. So you still have a couple weeks to make sure that these are being seen by the correct people, but they do need to be turned in no later than June 30th, 2021. ACH authorization form, of course, this is the form that will request your bank account information where CalMedForce payments will be deposited. In addition to completing this form through DocuSign, please also email us a voided check or deposit ticket as backup documentation of that account number. And then contact information form will ask for the primary contact person and the program director for the residency program. So please note these should be two separate contact persons. We want to have two different individuals to be able to contact in regards to the grant. The primary contact should be a person that works very closely with the grant, as they'll be the one receiving CalMedForce communications regarding important reporting requirements and payment information. We send a lot of documents to both the primary contact and then we CC the program director. So both of you are able to see the communications, but we want to be able to know who's the primary. Contact information for the CalMedForce team here at PHC is listed here in case you need to contact any individual member of our team. However, with any general inquiry, please don't hesitate to use our email address found here, which is calmedforce@phcdocs.org. Also, our general CalMedForce telephone number is listed here as well. All right, thank you so much for joining us. We can definitely address any questions, but just wanted to let you know we appreciate you taking the time to learn the overview of the CalMedForce grant and hope you join us for subsequent webinars regarding reporting requirements, the semi-annual, annual review, and final report as they come in the coming months. So at this time, we can definitely answer any questions if we have any submitted through the chat function.